8:02 a.m. local time, Tuesday, April 15th, 2194, Jafashian Desert. A blinding flash overpowered everything as a beam of pure white energy tore through the air between us and the dreadnought. The heat generated created a thunderclap so powerful that it shattered windows in Tisrago, nearly 2 miles away. The enormous replicator ship split like an egg, spouting blue flame and roaring with secondary explosions. Enormous dead chunks of robot mass fell to the sandy wasteland below, the cylindrical shape collapsing into itself in a rolling, terrible noise. We four in the cockpit regained our sight just in time to watch the end of the dreadnought. We did it! Ernest yelled, thrusting his hands in the air. The cockpit erupted into a string of cheers and high fives as the Bat to Hell made a clumsy turn towards Davkrist's crash site. Almost 100 yards away from the burning F-302 debris, Felnor waited patiently for pickup. Sam was guiding us in, and O'Neill was managing the radio chatter. I couldn't do either, both because of my fractured collarbone and because of the fact that the reactors were on the verge of stalling. "The expulsion chamber on the starboard reactor isn't working," I mumbled. "What?" Sam said reflexively. "The right fission reactor is clogging up with the radon leftovers. Normally there's a method to automatically sweep it clean, but it's not doing anything. I think the magnets are snapped from that crash earlier." "Anything we can do about it?" "Shut it down, clean it ourselves." "That doesn't sound very safe," O'Neill interjected. "We are 100 feet from Felnor now and closing." "There's a reason the machine handles it," I replied. "But we can't keep flying with it like this." I contemplated several different options before deciding on one. "Put us down where Felnor is. We can call Michael to come pick everyone up." "All right." We came over his position, throttled back, and descended to the dirt. Moments later, a jumper was inbound with Kopar aboard, wanting to congratulate us for our heroic triumphs. As the sleek Atlantean craft came to a halt, its hatch descended, and Mayor Silmet stepped out in his usual fashion, but with an air of the utmost respect. "Admiral," he began, "you and your crew today saved the town of Tisrago from the replicator scourge. While this may not be the last we see of them, oh dear." His view shifted behind me to the replicator wreck in the distance. "It seems our celebration was preemptive. Somehow there were enough functioning parts to reform into something at least as large as a frigate. The cylindrical form took shape, a disturbing image rising in the smoke of the dreadnought. And our reactors won't start," I moaned. "Michael, do you have any more drones?" "Expended them all, sir." "Damn!" "What about the deafening?" Kopar put in, trying to be helpful. "She's still in guard mode," I muttered. "It'd take too long to get out here." The looming shape came closer, a worried look crossed all of our faces. It started firing probing shots, estimating ranges. The sand nearby was blasted as high as 20 feet when one struck. "Now what do we do?" Ernest griped. We all slowly turned to him. None of us had so quickly forgotten his abilities. No, I can't. Not in something so big." "You can!" A probe exploded nearby. "I'm telling you, you can!" Another one sent sand shooting into the sky, and I could feel the heat. "You trusted me before, trust me again." The explosions were getting dangerously close. "Just concentrate!" There was an earth-shattering kaboom as the replicator ship violently ripped into pieces, burning and exploding as it fell to the ground again. The larger chunks were torn by thunderous blasts, yet Ernest had not raised his hands at all. He was smiling excitedly as the heavens' hail of red beams came down and destroyed the craft, followed by the clouds being punctured by the Admiral's ragged shape. We looked in amazement amongst ourselves. "Someone get Cortana on the line. Tell her that she could have picked a better moment to show up." The ship drifted away and hovered over Tisrago, the deafening retreating into the shuttle bay. "Kopar, want to tell your people to come out of the shelters now?" I'd learned earlier that when the replicators came within a certain distance of the city, the people retreated to bunkers built as tough as they come. Only a contingent of soldiers, hand-picked to guard, remained on the outskirts of town. "I don't have a way to tell them. They'll know when to come out. An hour or two at most. That's kind of sucky, O'Neill noted. Any cross-communication would have threatened the structural integrity of the construction. We have new ones in the works with such devices installed, however. Well, that's great. The next generation of people can learn not to huddle in a basement for 2 extra hours. Kopar gave us a scathing look. I've got the Admiral on the line, Sam announced from the cockpit. Put them on the overhead, I replied. Lauren crackled over the loudspeaker. Looked like you guys could use some help. You're lucky we got that nacelle patched up in time. Good going, Lauren! Kopar shouted from behind me. Hey, someone owes me a drink, she called. Come on down from there and I'll treat you to the best scotch you've ever had. Kopar laughed. Meanwhile, I'd traversed the ship once again and was staring blankly out of the windshield. Something was still moving up there. Ernest, there! I came sprinting back out of the rear hatch. A shape was pushing through the clouds, approaching the Admiral's rear. Then, about a kilometer out, the 70-meter cylinder broke through the gray bank. It was the Corvette, moving at a serious clip and coming in low. I didn't know what the pilot was thinking, but he was making it damn near impossible for the Admiral to turn and fire in time. Take out that ship! I yelled. What? He called in desperation. Concentrate! Blow it up! Send it off course! Something! You're the only shot we've got, and this is an order! His worried look faded away. He nodded solemnly before raising his hands. The Corvette screamed overhead. Through closed eyes he tracked the noise. Michael ducked out of the way as Ernest's closed face looked in his direction. Then, beyond the puddle jumper, there was a roar. Bright silver sparkles came raining down to the sand, and the Corvette rolled to port on fire and out of control. The Admiral pulled away as the smaller ship plummeted, firing futile rounds at an exceptional distance. Ernest recovered and watched the product of his work as it slipped towards the ground. It wasn't sinking fast enough. Well before hitting, the metal cylinder impacted the blackwood trees with a crash. It cut a burning path through the forest, scarring the woods before coming to land in the center of town with a tremendous explosion. The shockwave kicked up sand as a fiery ball rose high and decimated the landscape. Ernest gaped. In its final moments, the replicator Corvette had done more damage than any of its compatriots. At my side, the tall private fell to his knees and began to weep. Kopar stared with a mortifying gaze as the wasteland appeared before us. Ernest, you did it! The replicators are gone! I vainly tried to comfort him. But so is the town, he replied with a shattered voice. Kopar turned from the wreckage and took a single step before laying his hand on Ernest's shoulder. You did more good than harm, son. We can always rebuild. That's not good enough. I owe you all of that. He pointed towards the burning rubble. Please let me stay and help you. I promise I'll be better. I'll learn my skills. I'll keep defending your people just better. Kopar gave me a questioning frown. Is this allowed, Admiral? I knelt to be on eye level with Ernest. He had regained his composure somewhat, but still had not yet stood again. I began a speech that had been prepared centuries before. Private Ernest Lockade, do you submit your resignation from the TTO? Do I? Oh. He shook himself from emotional fog. Yes, sir, I do. I continued. And do you understand that you will no longer be supplied by or affiliated with the Doctor and his works? I do. Then I am entrusting you. I checked my pockets. Hold on. I quickly turned and stepped back into the battered hull, cracking open one of the rearmost lockers and removing a small cylinder. Silver with a red button on top and a blue stripe down the front. TTO was engraved down the back of the device, and the logo was predominantly visible on the button itself. It was a time beacon, about a centimeter across and 8 tall, and I came rushing with it back out of the ship to where Ernest was now standing tall. I cleared my throat. I am entrusting you with this one-use time beacon in case of an absolute emergency. If the timeline is broken, the blue strip will pulse. Then you may call us to help. I placed it carefully into his hands. He, in turn, immediately turned to the mayor and held out the small device. You're giving this to me? Kopar asked. You deserve it more than I. Ernest spoke with a power in his voice that I had not heard before. I will work for you." Mayor Silmet's smile reappeared and turned broad. He rested a hand on the private's shoulder and said, "And I will make sure you are needed and wanted in this community. You will be at my side as we bring the glory of civilization back to this landscape." "Why do I deserve that?" "Because you saved us. All of us. The people of Tistrego owe you a debt of gratitude. You see, towns, citizens," he turned to me, "starships, they can be rebuilt." He turned back to Ernest. "But people, when they are gone, they're gone for good. We deal with wooden replicators all the time, but if that corvette had survived, there's no telling if we would have been able to hold them back. You did the right thing, and for that you will be honored." Kopar turned back to his ruined town and began to walk towards the rubble, motioning Ernest to follow. "Come now. There's too much to do and never enough time. First order of business, new town hall, grander than the last." He waved his arms to form the invisible shape of the building as the pair wandered off across the sand. I smiled as they departed. Out of all this, good had come. 3:45 p.m. local time, Tuesday, April 15th, 2194, USS Admiral. After repairing the Battle to Hell for operational flight, we had parked back inside the Admiral, and I proceeded back to my command chair. SG-1 was beamed back to Jaffashid, where they'd left via the Stargate, after many thanks from us. When this mission had begun, I'd had a strange feeling that I'd be seeing them again. But now that they were leaving, it was returning. Perhaps I'd be seeing them again soon. I had a stack of papers at home, any number of which could have been from the SGC, the U.S. President, or the UN. I considered myself lucky that my father didn't go through my mail. That thought aside, I sat back and ordered a direct course to Mabel's. We had to report back on the success of this mission, and the complications that it had brought about. Everything had to be recorded and archived, crew needed to be replaced, and the ship needed to be sent to the Long Night of Solace for serious repairs. But all these, reports, repairs, and recruitment would have to be scheduled. It would take a generous amount of time to get through the system. But with 250,000 people in the organization, it was understandable that the speed which things cycled through was a bit low. Orbiting high, Lauren broke to me the good news. "The time drive is fully charged, sir." "Excellent. Karras, fire away." "Yes, sir," he happily replied. The time drive, a 4-foot-long, football-shaped glass container, filled with the yellow condensation of time energy, began to glow. The golden light spread across every surface, the hue penetrating all layers of armor and shield. This is how a 350-meter-long starship travels through time like a hot knife through butter. At the last moment, the Admiral shifted on its impulse engines. The cloud of condensed time shifted with it, tearing open a temporary hole in the continuum and letting us in. We were now on our way home. 7:10 a.m. Mabel's time. Thursday, September 25th, year 946, Mabel's Cafe. "Welcome home, everyone," I announced over the ship-wide comm as the yellow glow faded from the room. We had just arrived at Mabel's Cafe, the birthplace of the TTO and the home of the last of the Time Lords. The wheel-shaped space station, over 20 kilometers across, was our hub. The entire assembly floats in a man-made space-time bubble in the void between universes. Starships from all across time and space, from the Enterprise to the Pillar of Autumn, end up here. We were a background organization, working to keep the timeline right without altering the universe as a whole. Of course, it didn't always go so smoothly, as the last mission was a testament to, but the timeline was stable, the Stargate now worked, and we made it back safe. I'd call that a success any day. We docked and began to disembark. All crew had a requisite week of shore leave between missions, except for when we were too busy to spare it. But with 80-plus ships and 250,000-plus in personnel, we normally had plenty of spare time when the jobs came filtering in. After every mission, a report is in order, and I was compiling the data already. In the meantime, I would meet with the League of Captains to give them a short briefing about the worrying replicator attacks. After a tram ride from our docking port, all the way out in the East Spoke, I boarded an elevator and ascended, to the highest level of the main facility, at the center of the four-spoke wheel. This was the highest room in the hub, and one of the first ever built. The oblong main chamber had elevators at one end and a conference room at the other, with a craggy triangular gate in the middle, the variable time portal. The glass dome above hides an enormous holographic projector around its edge. Right now it was showing a shimmering globe hanging beneath the starless naval sky. It was Earth. The doctor must be in. As if on cue, the conference room's doors swung open, and out walked the 10th Doctor in all of his glory. "Ah, Ellis, how you been? It's been a bit, hasn't it?" He stretched out his palm. I gave it a firm shake. "Been good, Doctor, been good. Any escapades? Found a new companion yet?" "Yeah, actually, ran into this lovely woman named Donna. Love for you to meet her, but, well, I can't mix my jobs." We shared a smile. It was an unwritten rule that the doctors were not allowed to bring their companions to Mabel's, or even conduct operations with the TTO while said people were on board. There were a few exceptions to this, primarily with the 11th Doctor. Only once did the 10th ever take someone aboard, and it was Rose Tyler, shortly after the Bad Wolf incident. He needed better medical facilities to make sure that the time energy hadn't permanently altered her. "I need to go talk to the League of Captains about something," I said. "Are they in there?" "No, actually, I was looking for them. Cole might be in his office, but that's the only lead I have." "Oh, well, I'll go leave my report on the table." I removed a pair of data chips from my pocket with my left hand, winced, and then moved them to my right. That's when he noticed. "Blimey, what happened to your shoulder?" "Replicators, in the Admiral," I sighed. "Tough couple of days." "Sounds it," he frowned. "Well, I'm off. Gotta get out of here before 9 gets here. Don't want to shake up my time stream more than it already is." He made a move to walk past me. "Wait, on your way down, can you drop this in John's mailbox?" I passed him one of the data chips. "Gonna need more information than that." We had far more than just one John. "Sierra 117, John?" "Ah, yes, okay." He examined the small chip. "Cortana?" "Yep." "All right, no problem." He turned to pat me on the shoulder and then reconsidered. "Have fun on your captain hunt." As the elevator doors closed, I shouted, "Hunt? I'm going home." I left the chip plugged into the holographic projector on the conference room table. They'd see it when they convened this evening. After that, I'd returned to my own ship, transferred all the surviving logs to the databanks in Mabel's itself, and then boarded the bat out of hell to commandeer a ride back to my own home. The only time ship going remotely in that direction was the monster of a starship, the city ship class Atlantis, built by the Alterans millions of years before it was rediscovered by the humans of the Atlantis expedition in the 21st century. I requested permission to come aboard, and subsequently landed on the northeast pier. While I was still sitting in my seat, the entire city around me rumbled, drifted away from Mabel's cafe, and warped off into the time vortex. Now I was actually going home. And that actually concludes part 1 of Welcome to the TTO. Eventually I'm going to put all these bits together and you'll be able to hear it all at once. So if you get a kick out of that, you might want to just keep an eye on when that's going up. As always, this book is a work in progress. The reason I'm cutting it off here is because it actually ends here. There's quite a lot more in the book, but not more that I've written or really written well. So, with that in mind, I'm going to probably do a facecam video next week and we'll figure out exactly what I'm going to start reading then. I have a couple of ideas. But this has been Admiral Ellis of the TTO, and keep staring out at the stars. I'll see you guys next week.